everyone in the state of Wisconsin is pretty much aware of Wisconsin's werewolf, which also known as Beast of Bray Road. This creature has been seen for years and talked about for many years. And even when I was a kid, I always had been heard stories about this from my parents and grandparents and other family friends. Most of my relatives who live scattered throughout this Wisconsin actually has seen this creature, including my parents have seen it for maybe once or twice. And even as a kid, I always had strong fear of this werewolf would somehow sneak up to my bedroom window, scratch its claws against my window, and kidnap me in the middle of the night. Sometimes when I told my parents about these nightmares, they told me the werewolf wouldn't even do that. And when they told me about their own experience or their own seeing of this creature, well, without a doubt, I actually believed them, considering how many of my family has been seeing this creature. I mean, the first sightings were back in 1936, and that's like many years. So without a doubt, a lot of people have been, well, some people claim this is just a misidentification of a normal gray wolf or timber wolf, as also known as. Just misunderstanding this just may just been a big wolf, not a werewolf. But anyways, my own experience with a werewolf or this Wisconsin werewolf happened in the summer of 2015 in June. It was just me, my girlfriend Bella, Gloria, her friend, and my best friend Victor, who was dating Gloria. We actually had been invited for a party to a friend of us who lives outside of Elkhorn, and we actually had a great time at the party. Just, of course, some of us couldn't been drinking as much since one of us had been sober in order to be driving. So I was the one who chose to be sober. I mean, I've never been much a drinker myself. I only drink occasionally, but not much. So throughout the party, we just having a great time, just talking about all kinds of things actually. And my name is Jem, by the way, and I was 25 years old at the time that it happened. And even though this is not irrelevant, but Bella, my girlfriend, was only 1 year younger, and the same thing is for Gloria and Victor. All of them were also 24, but we were all good friends. But the party lasted for many hours. We were probably almost 20 people at this party. And around 11:30 p.m., the party had ended. And a lot of people actually had been driving home or somewhere sleeping over since they were too drunk to drive. And we said goodbye to our friend and said that this was a great party and hoping to have more sometime soon. And he actually hoping for the same thing. So we hopped in my car and we were just driving. And on the drive home, we were just talking about the party, how great time it was. And I also should point out that neither of my friends or my girlfriend was so drunk at the time. They didn't even drink that much. Victor maybe had just 2 beers, and both Bella and Gloria had only 1 or 2 drinks, but that much it. They never pretty much drank as myself. But as we were talking about this party, we did notice that it was getting more late. And we were talking out if we should take the same road back home or take a shortcut. We decided to take the shortcut, which made that we had to be driving along Bray Road, which is very famous around Wisconsin state. That's where most of the people have been seeing this Beast of Bray Road or Wisconsin's werewolf. And when I did mention this shortcut, Bella and Gloria were a little bit hesitating to take this road. And Victor was like, "Oh, it's because you're afraid of the werewolf?" Both the girls just tried to deny because they just didn't like to take a shortcut. Even though they paid even the short of the time, maybe 10 minutes or so. I mean, I even had stopped the car along the road, so we were debating on to take the long road the same way as we took before to went to the party or take the shortcut. We discussed about this for maybe a few minutes, but in the end, we all agreed to take the shortcut. After all, we were getting a little bit tired, and honestly, I didn't even want to drive the whole around the same route back home as we took to the party. So, as we were driving, but Bella asked me if I could drive a little bit slower since it was dark. There was no lights around the particular road. There was no, even there were some houses, but they were probably dark by now. And I agreed. And since there were no lights, and even if I had to have my high beams on, and we could still may hit a deer or something. And then I can understand my girlfriend's words and her concern about that. Even Victor tried, dude, you can use speed. Speed. Yeah, I could have done that, but at the same time, we never know if there could have been any police car in on that street or road in hiding to capture any caught any speeders at the time, because this was during a weekend, and honestly, I didn't want to have a speed ticket on my car, so I was like, dude, there is no way for me to doing that, and why would I speed a high speed on this road if it is completely dark? Even you had my head, even I had the strong beams on, it doesn't still give me. I mean, what if I hit a moose or a deer before I really do manage to stop the time? And who was gonna pay the damage? You? And he is like, nope, no, thought so. So we were driving along this road, and we were just still talking about this, the party, what we thought about it, and how good time we had to see some of our old friends. This was actually some of the friends that we had at the party either had left the town of Elkhorn or had moved to a different part of Wisconsin, and some of we hadn't even seen ever since high school or since college. I was really much happy to be good to get home for once, to get some good sleep. And my girlfriend was the same, because I could see that when she was in the passenger seat, she was pretty much half asleep. But suddenly, I saw this thing at the right side on the car on this road, just passing through crosses the road quickly. I really stunned, and I hit the brakes, and everyone just, whoa, what happened? Even my girlfriend Bella is like, she just quickly was out of clear awake after that jolt. She was like, did you hit something? No, did you guys see that? And they's like, no, what did you see? I don't know what I saw. I told them I saw something big cross the road in front of the high beams. And Victor looked through from the back seat and said, I can't see anything. And Gloria, who said, no, I can't see anything. What did you see? Can you describe it? Since this area have a huge deer population, and assuming there was maybe a deer, and since it happened so quickly, I told them I couldn't say exactly if it was a deer or if a person. It happened so fast. A person wouldn't even run that fast over the road, would it? Asked Victor. I don't know, said. I mean, unless that person was an athlete or something. But who would be so crazy, y'all, running around this late at night without any lights or any reflex on it? That was something that all of us actually started arguing or debating what to do. And as we were doing it, and suddenly Bella pointed out, Hey, can you see that? And as we looked from the high beams, in a distance on the cross on the road, we saw this figure. This figure was hunched down, and it somehow had its eyes looking at us. Those like red, clear eyes. I was like, what in the world? What is that? Victor suggested that I should drive forward but slowly, but I was like, dude, there is no way if I even you do that, that thing or the creature or this animal may just take off. But I luckily did it, and despite what as getting closer, this animal or this being it didn't make any movement. It was still hunched down, and I was like, "What is that?" When we were maybe halfway, only perhaps 20 feet away from this, I stopped again. This time, the high beams managed to hit more of its features. It was definitely an animal, because we could see this dark fur, like almost black. But it was, what can it be? A bear? I doubt it. The bear wasn't even, it wasn't even that big as a bear. But maybe a black bear. I mean, they probably used between 7 and 8 feet tall, I think. Sure, it could have been a black bear since it had black fur. But as I look closely, it doesn't even match any descriptions of a black bear. I mean, I've seen plenty of black bears from my years. And this is not a black bear, I told him. What do you think it is? But I didn't even get much an answer because I was looking at this creature. And suddenly, it just stood up. Everyone saw it and they were terrified. And now it was standing completely straight up, and its high beams was having its light towards this creature. We saw now it was not a black bear or any sort of bear at all. It was a humanoid creature. We actually saw it standing in front of us. And then suddenly it walked out on the road in front of the high beams light. Is that? Said Victor, almost and stopped himself before saying, continuing. Is that a wolf? No, it can't be, said Gloria. I mean, a wolf can't walk on two legs. Or can it? Unless it's a guy in a suit, said Victor, almost jokingly. Well, I mean, if that is a man in a wolf suit, it had to be sort of a prank or something. But we were debating what this could actually been. There were a lot of question marks. There was a lot of ideas. Could it have actually been a man in a wolf suit? But I said, well, if this is a man in a wolf suit, he had to be waiting in this location for hours. And at this time of the night, there are unusually not many cars driving this road this late. And if he had been waiting for any cars, he had been like waiting the whole night to see one or two cars. During daytime, this road was more active, but at nighttime, it wasn't really that much high traffic on it. But then I realized, guys, this is not a man in a suit. Everyone then started realizing we were looking at the famous Wisconsin werewolf. What should we do? Should we hit it? Said Victor. Are you crazy? Said Gloria. I don't even know we should do that, I said back. But as we were talking what to do, then Bella pointed out, it's getting closer. And then we all looked, and sure enough, this werewolf was actually moving towards us, but slowly, very slowly. And what should we do? And if this creature get any closer, there was no way things we could do. We should just turn around. But there were small issue on that. There were big ditches on the both sides of the road, and there was no place for me to turn, and even if it did, it would take a few minutes, and at that time, the creature would easily capture us. So, I did something that probably saved our lives. I started wrenching after the engine louder, like almost like saying if it was like wrenching up. And suddenly the creature stopped and looked at us. And we were like, maybe it's gonna take off. But it didn't. It just stood there. And I did again and again and even moved first. I actually moved closer, maybe only a few feet, while revving the engine. This werewolf actually looked at us. We can see this red eyes clearly now. And suddenly, it started howling towards the moon, and we thought, no, we're done for it. We're dead. But as Bella told me to ride the engine again, I did, but it didn't effect. But then suddenly, she leaned over and punched the air horn on my car, and suddenly that startled the creature. And as she told me, do it, and I moved forward and wrenched the engine while she was hitting the car horn. And suddenly, this werewolf actually looked at us for one last time before running off to the right and vanished in the dense forest. Victor told me, punch it! And so I did. I stepped on the gas and we speed off from that place. As we were driving away, Gloria and Victor looked around in back of the car to see if they could see these creatures walk out on the light. But they didn't see it. What just happened? Asked Victor. Was that a dream? No, that was clearly a real, unless that we were dreaming to have the same dream, which I doubt it is possible. We were silent the rest of the way home, but I know that the others had this in their mind, like, did we actually see the werewolf? When we get home, I dropped the others home, and when I did get home, it was like almost midnight. My parents were still awake, like, happened gladly. They were just watching some movie, and when I walked in, they said that they asked me if I had a good time, but I was petrified. I was pale. My mom saw, like, honey, is something wrong? I actually just went down in the living room, sat down. I was quiet for a moment, and I was babbling like, creature, car, headlights. And my parents, like, they had no idea, but they told me to calm down, take a deep breath, and explain what happened. So I did. Well, more as the brave part as much as I could. And I told them, that was definitely the werewolf that I saw. My parents didn't hesitate to not believe me, but they did, because they had told me before they had seen it themselves. A few days after this particular event, me and my friends and my girlfriend Bella, we were talking about this. We actually had told some other friends about this, sure, but some of them didn't even believe us. But some of them actually did. I mean, without a doubt, we saw the famous Wisconsin werewolf, or as some actually would say, Wisconsin's dogman. I had no, without a doubt, that was the famous werewolf. And throughout the entire summer, we were still hoping that we not wouldn't have to encounter that again. Since it happened, we drove that particular road around almost, perhaps around 7 or maybe it's 10 or even midnight on Bray Road, but never saw it again. And over the years that we drive on the car, over the years since we were driving that road, we never saw it. But I can swear, only a few years after this event, when I was driving that road alone, I saw a pair of red eyes on the left side of the road. I knew the werewolf was there and saw me. I did mention this to my friends, and they agreed that was the werewolf. And I haven't seen it since, but I know that people are still seeing it even to this day though, but I'm glad I don't. And I can say this, me and Bella, we actually got married only a few years later, and when our two boys were older, we told them about this werewolf, and they all believed the stories because they thought it was terrifying but also very fascinated and hoped one day to being able to see it themselves. I told them, well, at least hope if you're seeing it, don't stop. Just drive fast away from that. And I'm glad I managed to survive. But I don't know if anyone actually had been attacked by this creature. So this is my story.